It certainly was the last time I checked, so I haven't really bothered seeing whether it's still down or not. But either way, we've got ourselves a humongous breakaway, which has only been given 1 minute and 21 seconds right now. It's a leading group of 51 riders in total, and we've only got 2 riders dropped so far. One of them is Brian Kokar, who seems to have suffered a bee sting on his right hand. Bert van Lerberger, I've got no idea how he's fallen off the back. He's about 20 seconds behind. I assume just getting some assistance from the team car of Soudal Quickstep. But the intermediate sprint is coming soon. However, before that, we've got the Côte de l'Abattement, 1.3 kilometres, 6.8% average gradient. And on my stream right now, I've got 91 kilometres to go, 90.9 now, so that's where I sit. The breakaway has 1 minute and 38 on the peloton, and it is a breakaway that includes plenty of good riders, which I will get into. Now, there's too many to go through each individual, but some of the main names in here: Tim Wellens from UAE Team Emirates, Tish Benoot from Visma Lease-A-Bike, and Maximilian Schachmann from Soudal Quickstep are the riders from the 3 big teams, with the 3 leading GC guys in there, so they've all got 1 rider in the breakaway. Santiago Buitrago is there for Bahrain Victorious, with Lenny Martinez in the King of the Mountains jersey represented. Ineos have managed to get 5 in the move, including Carlos Rodriguez, who is the closest on the general classification, just 5 minutes and 44 seconds down. Guillaume Martin, another GC rider in the breakaway, at 10 minutes 44, with Matthias Skjelmoser there for a little trek as well, just under 13 minutes down. Alexander Vlasov seems to have been given the right to go for the stage win today. He's in the breakaway for Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. Alaphilippe, Mark Hirschi and Michael Storer are the big names from Tudor. Mathieu van der Poel there for Alpecin-de-Koning. Ben O'Connor, another outsider GC guy, along with Emmanuel Buchmann, both at around the 10 to 15 minute mark on GC, are in the breakaway. Mauro Schmid, second yesterday, has found himself in the move with 3 Movistar riders, including Aino Rubio and Pablo Castrillo. The important riders, you'd argue, for Movistar: Aurelian Paripantra in there for my fantasy team and Decathlon, as is Simone Velasco, but he'll be helping Harold Tejada. Buchmann has Izagirre and Turns with him to carry him towards Hautacam. Woods, Blackmore and Lutsenko are the Israel Premier Tech riders. Anthony Turgis is in there after sprint points for Total Energy, and then working for Steph Kras, the Total Energy leader. And Uno X's sprinter Stian Fredheim's in there, but we've seen Uno X are not happy with that at all. They wanted probably a rider like Anders Harlan Johannesson, or maybe even Tobias, in the breakaway, because they continue to pace on the front of the peloton right now. It's been a mixture of Uno X, Nils Pollitt, and EF Education EasyPost, who have Harry Sweeney in the breakaway, pacing in the peloton. And I might as well call it a second peloton, because the breakaway is so large that riders can easily completely shelter from the wind. Just over 200 metres to go until the top of the Côte de l'Abattement. Will Lenny Martinez be interested in only 1 point? He's not, but Fred Wright is going to the front of the race and picking up the solitary King of the Mountains points. Somebody will be happy with him. given that Wright is in his fantasy team, my podcast co-host Lucas. Over the top Fred Wright goes, and I can't remember whether Lucas got rid of him or not, so I'll work that out when we record the podcast after the stage. As Tiemann Aronson, with a couple of bottles stuffed down his jersey pockets, you'd think he'd be secondary leader today from the breakaway for Ineos. They've had Connor Swift up front, making sure that the gap remains too high to be bridged to. And it's 1:45 at the moment, with Uno X burning through their domestiques. Initially, it was Jonas Abrahamsson with the first attack of the day, as Tim Merlier and Arnaud Delis are being dropped by the peloton, who are going over the Col de la Batmal now. They will be summiting that climb very shortly. And it will be a quick descent into the intermediate sprint at Benejak. We've seen multiple riders try and get in the move for the intermediate sprint alone. In the end, only one of them has made it stick. Brian Cocard tried, Jonathan Milan tried, Biniam Girmay tried. But in the end, Anthony Turgis managed to get himself up the road. As over the top of the climb will come the peloton. And the gap is dangling at the moment at 1 minute and 50 seconds. Arnaud Démare off the back, looking for some assistance. But Visma Lease-A-Bike are very much to the forefront of the peloton right now. I thought UAE got it right, putting Tim Wellens into the breakaway, but since that point they've not really done what I've expected them to do, or what might have been the best. Either way, Fred Wright, unopposed, picks up the solitary point. Lenny Martinez clearly learning lessons and not going for the all-out for the solitary point on the Col de la Batmal. We saw him, of course, on stage 10, riding every single climb like it was his last. And that probably put him in a poor situation later on in the stage where everything came to fruition. And Ben Healy saw himself in the yellow jersey with Simon Yates winning the stage. Can Visma Lease-A-Bike take their second stage win of this Tour de France here? It's a question that we will find out in probably around 85 kilometres time. Unless he and Pogacar are together in the final kilometre of Hautacam. But riders are going for the intermediate sprint, and right now it is Laurens Rex looking to take points away from other riders. Mathieu van der Poel managed to get in the breakaway, remember, and is trying to get around Rex. In the end, finishes in second position. Thibaut Nice is in the breakaway. Edward Tones was the man that went for it for Little Trek. But Laurens Rex wins the intermediate sprint. And on the bike throw, Mathieu van der Poel holds off his main rival, being Little Trek's domestique Edward Tournes. Stian Fredheim took fourth, with Simone Velasco in fifth. Thank you very much, Simone. And Anthony Turgis did not go all in for that sprint, just sat on the wheels and crossed the line in sixth. He's not worked for any of these intermediate sprints, but he's just picking up minor points here and there. I thought Anthony Turgis would be in the breakaway today, and that has proved to be the case, but I was expecting him to get a little bit more involved at that intermediate sprint. But let's talk about yesterday, because it was a very, very good stage yesterday, I thought. And we'll start by looking at the stage winner, who did a very long interview after the stage, deservedly so. taking his first win, his first Grand Tour win, and his team's first Grand Tour win. Uno X picked up the win yesterday with Jonas Abrahamsen, who said, "I broke a collarbone 4 weeks ago in the Belgium Tour. I was crying in the hospital because I thought I was not riding the Tour de France. But the day after, I was on the home trainer and hoping to go to the Tour. Every day I did everything I could to come back here. To win a stage at the Tour de France is amazing. Mauro Schmid was strong today from the start. I tried, it was so difficult to pass him, but I was thinking I have to win this stage at the Tour de France, and I got a wheel in front. That was so nice. A lot of people wonder why we don't go in the breakaway and take mountain points. The main goal for the team was to take a stage win this year. We had to be a bit smarter than the 14 days in the polka dot jersey. Last year I was a bit tired and wasn't able to win a stage. To win a stage was my dream at the Tour de France. To have that stage is now so nice. It's so nice to be a part of a team. I've been there since the start in 2017 and seen the team growing every year. There's very good people around in the staff. My trainer and doctor helped me a lot to come back after a crash. I'm so proud of the team. They believed me that I could go to the Tour de France after that, and now I win a stage. It's so nice. I know I have a pretty good sprint, and we have been out front for a long time. From meter zero, I was sprinting after the car, so I have to be smart and not go over the limit. I was hoping to take him in the sprint. We were very strong guys who were never given beyond 2.5 minutes. In the start, it was like 30 seconds to a minute all the time. We were also working hard to get the gap all day. It's so nice to get the victory. Mathieu van der Poel is a very strong rider, so we had to push very hard all day, and I'm just so happy with the result." And that was a beaming Jonas Abrahamsen, who took the stage win ahead of Mauro Schmid, two riders that had broken away from kilometre zero. The only other rider that broke away with them from that point was Davide Ballerini of Astana. So a victory for the morning breakaway, holding off a challenge from the likes of Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert, Axel Laurent, Arnaud Delis and Quinn Simmons in an elite 5-man chasing group. The front group trio were joined by Fred Wright and Mathieu Bourgadeau. Wright, of course, involved in today's breakaway as well, so a big couple of days for the Brit. Probably just making sure that he stays in the time limit will be the objective for the next couple of days for Fred Wright. But it was a massive, massive result for Uno X. And Tobias Harland Johannesson agreed with that sentiment, saying, "Being in the team now, it's completely crazy. I think if there's one guy that could do it, it's Jonas Abrahamsen. But I don't think any other cyclist can do what he does. The way he did it, he must have been the strongest, because there was such a strong group that tried to break away and bridge over to his group, but they stayed to the end." And indeed they did. But Tobias Harland Johannesson was also involved in a story of his own, being caught up in a crash with the rainbow jersey, Tadej Pogacar, and the main GC favourite for the Tour de France as well, in Pogacar. So that was a secondary line, and he got some pretty nasty abuse from it by the sounds of his tweet, which is never nice and totally undeserved because it wasn't his fault entirely. It was a 50-50 racing incident, I think, personally, but there we are. Back to the stage though, and we have plenty of riders that we have to keep an eye on in the breakaway. So Laurens Rex winning the sprint, taking 20 points, followed by Mathieu van der Poel. Here is what the sprint classification looked like going into the day. Jonathan Milan led on 231 points and will continue to lead at the end of this stage. Tadej Pogacar second on 163, with Mathieu van der Poel third on 156, jumping above Biniam Girmay. And those 17 points that he took will take him above Tadej Pogacar and into provisional second on the road in the sprint classification. Van der Poel clearly taking an interest in the green jersey then. But who is going to be interested in the stage win? From this breakaway, as we hit the 2-hour mark in the stage, we will soon be climbing the Col du Soulor, the first Category 1 test of this Tour de France, 11.8 kilometres at 7.6% average gradient. It's going to be a massive effort to try and get over the top of that climb at the head of the race, especially because with the way Visma Lease-A-Bike have been pulled along by the likes of UNOX Mobility and EF Education EasyPost, they could rip this race apart as early as they want to, and I'm sure they would like to try and test the legs of Tadej Pogacar early after his incident yesterday, which we will talk a lot more about as the stream goes on. But right now, UNOX Mobility are continuing on the front of the peloton, and more riders are falling by the wayside for them. They've not got too many riders to use up. But yeah, for handing around bottles as we get a replay of the intermediate sprint. Van der Poel, of course, moves on to 173 points now, into second, behind Jonathan Milan on 231 points. Pogacar third on 163, Guillermo fourth on 154, and Tim Merlier on 150 points will complete the top five. Turgis moves on to 117 as a replay of Brian Cocard going over the intermediate sprint points. He's at the rear of the race at the moment, being followed by the Broom Wagon, and looks like he is interested in finishing the stage. UNOX continue on the front though. Missed the breakaway, and a breakaway this large. Well, they've got Fredheim in it, but that's clearly not the guy that they wanted in the breakaway. Perhaps had too much of a party last night following Jonas Abrahamsson's win yesterday. But every other rider that took points at the intermediate sprint behind Anthony Turgis has no interest whatsoever in the green jersey, whether that be taking points off others for teammates or on their own. The peloton continues though. Jonas Vingegaard briefly went for a nature break earlier, being pushed by Wout van Aert to make sure that he didn't fall too far back in the peloton. And we've seen nature breaks from Tadej Pogacar and Remco Evenepoel earlier on in the stage. That was another point of conversation. Visma Lease-A-Bike allegedly attacking during Pogacar's nature break. As UNOX finally hand over to Kasper Asgreen, the former Danish national champion for EF Education EasyPost, who grits his teeth and pulls a turn at the front of the peloton, flicks his elbow for Nils Pollitt, who duly obliges to come through. I think that's Nielsen Paulus in the wheel of Nils Pollitt, NP and NP. Meanwhile, at the head of the breakaway, Louis Barret is pacing at the moment for Intermarché Wanty. I don't really know why, because neither Barret or Rex will be involved in the stage win or fighting it out. Anthony Turgis hands over to somebody who should be doing a job at the front of the breakaway, Connor Swift. He's got Carlos Rodriguez to work for today. Spanish rider who, remember, is one of the few to have beaten Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar from the GC group on a Tour de France mountain stage. Just over 75 kilometres remain in the stage. 1 minute 48 separate the peloton from the breakaway, and they've not been given a long leash all day because teams have missed this, and riders are in the breakaway that are potential dangers for the general classification, certainly the minor placings. The likes of Emmanuel Buchmann, Ben O'Connor, Matthias Skjelmose and Guillaume Martin have all made it into this move and will not be contributing whatsoever. They'll be sitting in the wheels because it's such a large breakaway that they can afford to do that. Right at the back of the peloton at the moment are a couple of riders. Elmar Reinders, the lead-out man for Dylan Groenewegen. Both of those riders will just be looking to make it through today more than anything else, as Phil Bauhaus sprints past the camera motorbike, threads the needle between the camera motorbike and Reinders, who is taking a couple of bottles from the Jacob Alula team car. So the Col du Soulor is the first test of the day. It will be followed by the Category 2 Col de Bordeaux and then Hautacam to finish the stage off. And it is a irregular climb, the Col du Soulor. Starts off very steep, at least in the categorized section of it, and has gradients that go up to sort of 12-13% at times, and sections for a good couple of kilometres that are as low as sort of 4 to 5%, shall I say, for a couple of kilometres, and that will mean it could provide a launch pad for chaos. And with the peloton still so close to the breakaway, perhaps there is a plan from the likes of Uno X to lob Tobias Harland Johannesson into the breakaway. He'd have to be strong to get there, but it is worth a try nonetheless, and it seems to be what they're looking to do since missing the breakaway entirely with both Johannesson brothers. Oscar Onley being interviewed by British television right now, saying that it's a different effort to the other stages. It's all about measuring and doing your own pace rather than watching other people and following attacks. And he also mentions a good point. It is very hot today, which means that it will be more difficult for everybody to get to the end of the stage. The lactic acid will be flowing in the legs by the time we get to Hautacam, and it'll be all about fighting the demons and just holding out for as long as you possibly can, going as hard as you possibly can. Right at the rear of the peloton at the moment is Anders Harland Johannesson, perhaps saving him to use as one of the final domestiques for his brother Tobias, who has been fairly consistently in and around the top 10 of the general classification. Highest position of 8th after stage 3, lowest position of 30th, of course, on stage 1, but after that point, he reached his low point in the time trial. Of course, not his favoured discipline, finishing 35th on stage 5 and dropping to 15th overall. But he's recovered it in the latter part of the first week, as other riders have fallen by the wayside, and sits just in the top 10, entering the day's stage. And one of the things that I did not mention, we had a very exciting stream yesterday, lots of action, which meant I couldn't really do many of my parts involving interviews with various riders. But we had a lot to get through because it was, of course, off the back of the rest day, where pretty much every team gets quizzed by the media. And one rider who I thought certainly deserved a chance to get read out, even on today's stream, is Jasper Philipsen, of course, caught up in an early crash in the race with Brian Coquart, who is now at the back of the race today, on a yellow card as well. But an update on Philipsen's condition, which he gave on the rest day. He said, "I'm feeling good, so that's promising. Because of the circumstances, the recovery is going well. Also, my wounds are already healed, so the body is in good shape and healing fast. I've not been on the bike yet because it's not possible with the collarbone. It needs to heal a bit more, but because of the circumstances and the progress, I am happy." So he doesn't seem too aggrieved, did not blame Brian Coquart for any of the wrongdoing, or the alleged wrongdoing, that the ASO gave him a penalty for. But that was an update on Philipsen's condition. And his teammate was involved in the breakaway yesterday and almost got the win. Mathieu van der Poel coming within 7 seconds of victory. Could not manage to bridge across, though, to Jonas Abrahamsen and Mauro Schmid, who contested the stage victory as a duo. But after the stage, Van der Poel, speaking to Anders Milker of Eurosport, said, "I'm happy with my race. I didn't feel good in the beginning, so I told my team they could start jumping as well for a breakaway because I didn't want them to control the race. But after a certain while, I saw it was going to be a race until a group was going for the win, and that's why I decided to join, because I started to feel a bit better later in the race." All the week with the radio communication, there's so much of it in the tour that sometimes there's no connection for us. I thought at a certain point, the attack on the final climb was to win the race. But I saw quite quickly that there were some riders in front of me, so I just tried to ride as fast as possible until the finish line. Interesting insight from Mathieu van der Poel, because I get to hear a lot of the general race radio during these streams. And there is a lot of it, and a lot of it in French, which I kind of just block out. Or if it's incredibly basic, I can just about translate. But Van der Poel saying that basically he had no idea what the race situation was, which is a little bit worrying. And I don't know whether that's Van der Poel's fault, whether that's Alpes Indekönig's fault for not giving him updates from the team car, or whether that's a larger issue surrounding race radios entirely, but something to consider. He only knew because the motorcycle was in front of him. He didn't even see the riders at first, which is exactly pretty mental. And certainly an advert for the woman with the chalkboard on the back of the motorcycle to continue doing her job, because even though it's the whole tradition thing, actually it's somewhat helpful for the riders. Also, welcome to the stream, Isolated. How are you doing? And how have you found the first couple of weeks of racing? Either way, the breakaway continues to press on, as does the peloton, and the gap is kind of stabilised for the majority of this stage. But that's your situation for the moment, and I certainly agree with you, Isolati, that the race will explode. Carlos Rodriguez did ruin the brakes chances as well, I agree with that statement, and I'm surprised that we've not seen riders attack on that fourth category climb. The likes of, Buitrago or Lenny Martinez, or riders that are in there for the stage win. Somebody as well like Michael Storer, just to get away from Carlos Rodriguez, because he is the man that is keeping this breakaway close right now. And I get you can argue that it's Uno X's, it's Uno X that are keeping the break close, but the reason they are keeping the break close is because Carlos Rodriguez is there. Maybe Ineos would hard pace the flat, I guess. Yeah. It's kind of difficult. But I think if you did get a group including riders that wanted to go for the intermediate sprint as well, so the likes of Van der Poel, Rex, etc., you could get away far enough initially, maybe. But yeah, again, it might just be a bit too much with Swift, Laurence, Foss, and Aronsman all working for the potential stage win. And for Carlos Rodriguez, of course, and his GC hopes, which have been pretty underwhelming, to say the least, so far this Tour de France. A rider who should be doing better than he is right now in the overall classification. Admittedly, just over 5 minutes down, and we've not had a high mountain stage where he is at his best. But 12th overall for Carlos Rodriguez, and of course this is a rider who is logically only on the up. Already picked up 2 top 10 results at the Tour de France, 5th in 2023, 7th in 2024, and that mighty stage win in 2023 on stage 14 ahead of Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard on that descent into Morzine. It was an insight into what he could achieve, but has not won a stage since the Dauphiné in 2014. Would Visma do the Col du Soulor strat today? Is another good question. I think Benoit in the breakaway is going to be massive. Benoit versus Wellens is going to be huge in this break. A Belgian on Belgian war. But we were discussing this yesterday. Visma now are going to throw the kitchen sink, I think, at this. Because nobody knows what Tadej's condition is, apart from Tadej. He's a little bit bandaged on the left arm. Hello, Mika. It's all the old guard here today. Mika isolated. Feels like 2020 all over again. No, I can see Visma throwing literally everything they've got at this stage now. I'm doing fantastically, Mika. I think we've all got lives to live now, I'm afraid. The sim does still constantly go through my head. But, that's in the past now. We've all got jobs, I assume. Some of us, I assume as well, will have girlfriends and the like. So, living life right now. They got a lot of criticism from not riding yesterday after the crash. I am in the Lanterne Rouge YouTube members Discord group, and Lanterne wanted Visma to pace, so they went against Mr. Patrick Bro's instruction. But yeah, I don't see. I don't really see the point of them pacing, especially with. If Pogacar's feeling bad today, they can win the Tour today, realistically. As TotalEnergies are on the radio, saying that they think it's going to be a really high pace from the Soulor. Hot take there from the TotalEnergies team car. And I think that Visma are going to force it, especially with the breakaway so close. If Jonas would win by 20 seconds, they would all say it's because of the crash. Exactly. So the way I stand here is realistically, they're pacing for 15 to 20 seconds. And at the end of the day, do you want to be 15 to 20 seconds up and the whole peloton despise you? Or let Pogacar come back, don't gain the 15 to 20 seconds, and gain a bit more respect from the peloton? Because I think this is a lot more of a political thing now. Both teams are trying to sort of drum up the rest of the peloton to be on their side. And I think this was a big win for Visma yesterday in the way that they rode. I'm convinced fully that both teams hate each other. I think a lot of people agree with that. But would it be different if it was Pogacar's fault? I think it's 50-50 anyway. I don't think Johannessen's totally to blame. Obviously, he's like slight majority of the blame, I think. But at the end of the day, Pogacar's got to be on it. And everybody was heading to the right-hand side to follow the Hautacam attack anyway. So, for the first time, I think this is Pogacar not reading the race and, like, being involved in an incident himself. He's usually so good at just about missing peloton crashes and stuff. I don't know about his bike handling, but certainly his peloton IQ and the way he reads a race is better than most of the GC guys, to say the least. But yeah, that's the first time I've really seen him put a foot wrong in terms of bike handling and peloton positioning and reading the race. Mika, I want to know what happened if Hautacam crashed or someone in the likes of that place in the GC. I think he does get a bit of leeway because it's World Champions bands. I'm just watching viewer count double as we start talking about Tadej Pogacar. He does get a little bit of leeway because he's World Champion and there's kind of... what's the word? You get points scored, I guess, if... or that you're kind of more of a... oh, how do I put this into words? Either way, like, he's more respected, I guess, because he's in the rainbow jersey. I don't think Hautacam gets the same treatment. If anything, if Hautacam goes down, I fully would have expected the likes of Uno X or any other rider that was around him in GC, Picnic Postinel maybe, the big teams wouldn't ride, but I think the likes of Picnic or Uno X or Decathlon, etc. would. But yeah, I think... let me find the quote. Matteo Jorgensen. He spoke about it, and this is a nice little segue into it. Jorgensen said, "I was on the back foot for a lot of the day. I was at the back at the start, and every time it slowed down, the road would be blocked, and I couldn't make it to the front. Then it would restart. I was on the back foot and behind some splits, but also with all the GC guys behind the splits. I felt safe in the chaos, but it was still full chaos. I heard the crash for sure. We made the collective decision to wait for Tadej Pogacar. It's the sporting decision." Here we go, he's about to spit bars. "After a lot of comments the other day about accusations of unsportsmanlike stuff that I've never seen from Tadej, now he can be confident we're trying to beat him in a sporting way." Fighting talk from Matteo. If it was Healy, yellow jersey holds enough weight, I think, for them to club together and say, let's not pace this down. I think it also helped that it was 40 kilometres away. If he did the same with 40 kilometres to go rather than 4, maybe they wouldn't have waited because it's earlier in the race. The pace would naturally have increased anyway because of the final couple of climbs. But yeah, I think Healy, they would have waited. Pogacar, they would have waited. Jonas, they would have waited. Remco is maybe kind of your like point at which they might not have. Although I think Remco would have thrown a hissy fit if they didn't wait for him. But yeah, I don't know which rider you'd kind of get to on GC where they wouldn't wait. Definitely they wouldn't wait for Jorgensen, I think. If Jorgensen went down, then that's a teammate. That's not somebody they're considering waiting for. Tom Dumoulin and Steph Clement had some very interesting things to say about it as well. If you can remember any of it, Mika, hit the chat, because I am very eager to find out what the Dutch view of things is. Of course, they're going to be on the side of Visma, but how heavily are they going to be on the side of Visma? Steph Clement's going to push the Belkin line. Weirdly, I did see someone. I was at the barber's. I don't know why I'm talking about my trip to get a haircut. But I was at the barber's a couple of days ago, and there was a guy in Belkin kit getting his trim done next to me. I was like, could you like finish your ride before you get your haircut? Because surely you're just whacking your helmet back on. You know what I mean? Anyway, back to the race, and Fred Wright's been dropped from the breakaway, as has Robert Stannard. But more riders are falling by the wayside as time is going on and the pace is increasing. And one of them, actually a little bit of a surprise for Cofidis, Dylan Teuns off the rear. Other riders, for example, are also heading off the back. The likes of Anthony Turgis, a couple of Ineos Domestiques have done their job, in particular Tobias Foss and Connor Swift. Isolate says, I'm going to head out here now, might come back. No problem, Isolate. I'm always here for a chat if necessary. And to be honest, if the chat is active, I find it easier to stream. Otherwise, I'm just kind of waffling into thin air. Fred Heim off the back. He's been dropped after Dylan Teuns and Tobias Foss, as has Matteo Trentin. And RK at B&B Hotels' representative in the breakaway, Clement Venturini, who's actually surprisingly close on GC. He's surprisingly high for a sprinter. Possibly the best sprinter, I think, on GC. Right, Mika's given us the lowdown from Steph Clement and Tom Dumoulin, as Luke Durbridge is pushing on at the front of the head of the race. Do you think this is the day for Ben O'Connor, Mika? Is this the opportunity? So Mika says something in the likes of that the media will drain your energy more if you weren't pacing. Also something Tom said about his time waiting on Nairo in the Giro, that it helped him recover more or something along the lines. I think there's definitely something in that of like, we want to beat them on the road. Where's the Giannetti quote? I'm now going to bring up Mauro Giannetti's head on screen. It wasn't this one. Was it this one? No, it was. I think it was 3. Dun, 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 dun. Either way, he said something along the lines of, it's good to see that Visma want to win this with the legs and not the luck. And I was like, do you know what? That's fair. Ben will get 20th after the peloton catch-up. I mean, honest, fair. I was expecting a delusional take from you. Something like Ben's going to take 5 minutes on GC here. But being dropped at the moment is Jonathan Milan from the peloton. He will be pacing up the climb with his comrades, Dylan Groenewegen, Biniam Guillemai, Tim Merlier, etc. Up the Col du Soulor at their own pace, forming a gruppetto and making sure that they will cross the line within the time limit. Murmurings that Van Aert was also being dropped. Did you see the Ben crash out before the rest day? Link? Hold on, what's he done now? I definitely, I've seen the Paris-Nice clip where he screams fuck down the, that was picked up on the mic. Yeah, so loud that it was picked up on the mic, like, probably about 50 yards away. Either way, Tadej Pogacar has been dropped from the head of the race, which means I think that Tim Wellens will still be there. Maximilian Schachmann too. No, he got mad at some rider in the breakaway like 5 times. That doesn't sound very Ben O'Connor. No, I fully expect that from Ben. He rides on emotion. He's like what's the word? He's Australian Thomas Voeckler, I think. Pure emotion. He's like an honorary Frenchman. Just rides on pure vibes rather than anything else. Sheer hatred gets him up the climbs. Another Oceanic rider though, Laurens Pithy, being dropped from the head of the race. He's putting his eggs in Alexander Vlasov's basket, who is now alone in the breakaway. Reasons why I'll win today. Come on, Ben. Either way, Ben O'Connor is at the front of the race and he's got 11 kilometres of the Col du Soulor remaining. They've done the first 800 metres of the climb and it's Nils Pollitt that comes to the front of the peloton. We've seen this before. Pollitt entering the foot of a climb. How long can he hang on? Because he was the big performer, the overperformer, if you will, on UAE Team Emirates. Now, Joao Almeida obviously gets targeted with the overperforming label, but I think Nils Pollitt was the rider that proved himself the most at last year's Tour de France. Such a key part in Pogacar's victory. How long will he be able to last on this, the opening Category 1 of the Tour de France? And will the race open up on this 11.8 kilometre test? Immediately, Nils Pollitt gets usurped by Visma Lease-A-Bike, and this is the sign that they are after some part of the day as well. Tadej Pogacar will soon be caught by the Visma Lease-A-Bike-led peloton, and they are beginning to put riders under pressure. Swaying Marc Soler sat on the wheels, as well as one of the Ineos Grenadiers riders who has stopped on the side of the road. Who's winning today then? Well, I have quite handily made a graphic for that. Let's not talk about the ones from yesterday's stage. Quick, get them off the screen. Jonas Vingegaard wins today for me. I went for Tadej Pogacar before the Tour, but swap Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. I want Jonas Vingegaard front and centre of this graphic. I'm going Jonas today. Tadej Pogacar was my pick pre-race, but Jonas Vingegaard is my pick pre-stage based on the slight war wounds that Tadej Pogacar is using right now. But Lenny Martinez I was going for because I thought he'd get in the breakaway, and I just want to keep an eye on him to see how many mountain points he's going to get. I'd fully back a Felix Gall win though. Out of the GC riders, he is my favourite. And the guy that I root for the most. Rippers agrees with me, I think, that Jonas Vingegaard will win the stage. I hope he top fives this tour this year. I think it's possible. I think I only like Felix Gall because he looks like Matthias Frank on the bike, and he's got the same glasses and all of that nonsense. And Frank used to race for Age Desert. But forward come Ineos, who are pressing on in the breakaway. They've definitely got the call through that Visma Lease-A-Bike are lighting things up in the peloton. And off the back of the breakaway goes Aurélien Paris-Panchra, and the peloton is fracturing constantly now under the tempo of Visma Lease-A-Bike. Jonas Vingegaard sat on the wheel of a couple of UAE Team Emirates riders. Looked like Soler, Sivakov and Jonathan Narvaez. Both Paris-Panchras dropping. Bad day for the Paris-Panchra family. Also bad day for my fantasy team. Although actually really is it, because Aurélien was in the breakaway, so got points. Might as well get up my Velo Games team right now, see where I'm at. Pogacar and Vingegaard is a play. Carlos Rodriguez being in the breakaway. Ben O'Connor being in the breakaway. Damian Too's actually getting me points. It's making me laugh. Because I only picked him because I like the guy. Mathis Louvel deserves the absolute worst. But riders are dropping constantly. Your team's going good as well. I will get it up on stream shortly, Mika. And Van der Poel now off the back. They're doing an analysis of Visma Lease-A-Bike on the British feed right now. But right now, the peloton has 2 minutes to close on the breakaway, and a breakaway that is being led by Thymen Arensman and Axel Laurence. Mark Hirschi off the back of the breakaway, and Mika is very keen to let me know that Lenny Martinez has been dropped. Fantastic performance from him. So Santiago Buitrago it is for the stage for Bahrain Victorious. That's a big crack from the polka dot jersey, and I'm not talking about. No, sorry, I'm not going to finish that sentence. Also off the back is Jonas Vingegaard, but Lenny Martinez has blown his doors off, and he's blown his doors off under the infernal pace from Ineos Grenadiers, who are opening the gap ever so slightly to the Visma Lease-A-Bike led peloton. Visma against Ineos. Feels like the old days are back. It's Axel Laurence drilling it at the front of the breakaway after his escapades yesterday, being involved in that elite 5-rider chase group that included the likes of Van der Poel, who was in the move today and has been dropped. I don't know why my Pro Cycling Stats is not updated for 30 kilometres, but there we are. Now it has. And it means that the breakaway group is ever reducing. More and more riders off the back of the breakaway, and we are now starting to see the elite go to the top. Certainly, 3 riders in the top 20 overall look like the most elite in this breakaway. Matthias Skjelmoser sat 18th, Ben O'Connor sat 17th, and Carlos Rodriguez on 12th overall. Aurélien Perry-Pantra is still seemingly just about hanging on, but I think he's slightly distanced. Lenny Martinez is certainly distanced. Steph Kras, keep an eye on him. Ineos Grenadiers, sponsored by Total Energy. It would be funny if they got beaten by a rider from actual Total Energy. And Ben O'Connor is clinging on to the back of the breakaway group. Guillaume-Martin Guillaumet and Harry Sweeney are the latest to go, but Ben O'Connor seems to be tying up. Steph Kras clinging on to the back, and that is Ben O'Connor's day done for the stage win, dropping off the pace of Axel Laurence. As I'm hearing on the radio that Remco Evenepoel is in difficulty. And this is a horror show for Soudal Quickstep. They've gone to a Matteo Jorgensen interview just as I'm getting this through on the headphones. So I'm expecting the camera to cut back and the white jersey wearer to be in difficulty at the rear of the peloton. I'd like to see a camera on it if that's preferable. They are convinced that Remco Evenepoel's gone. He's in a battle at the moment with Ewan Kostju. Warren Barguil. Finally they're making their way through on the camera motorbike, and Remco Evenepoel is on the radio, number 21. This is massive for the general classification. Evenepoel off the back. And suddenly, GC Vauquelin is back on, ladies and gentlemen. He's got Ewan Kostju, his teammate, marking Remco. Warren Barguil as well off the back with him. And this is a terrible, terrible sign for the Belgian. I was expecting him to have a stage where he really blew. I did not expect it to be the first mountain test of the race. He shaved his head, and maybe he was better with the hair. But this peloton is so small now. It was huge entering the Col, and suddenly it has just totally disappeared off of the pace of Visma Lease-A-Bike, who are ripping this race apart. Remco going stage hunting would be fantastic for the race. I'm not sure whether that will work. I also want him to finish in the top 3 of GC, because he was saying before the race that if he's not in the top 3, then he's just going to pack Tour de France GC up, which is a bit of a silly thing to say given that you're younger than Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. But his decision is his decision, and I think his decision might be being vindicated here. Off the back goes Victor Campenaerts, who has finished his job for the day, smiles to the camera, and now is the turn of Tadej Pogacar, jersey unzipped, riding tempo on the front. UAE Team Emirates, you've got to look out for their team. Couple of riders short already. Kevin Vauquelin out of the saddle, hanging on. Enric Mas clinging to the rear of the peloton as well, looking to make advances. But at the moment, Jonas Vingegaard jumps ahead of Remco Evenepoel on GC. Matteo Jorgensen should do shortly. And the pace increases. I think this is the second group that are chasing the breakaway, because Ben O'Connor's in it, Ivan Romeo and Steph Kras. Guillaume-Martin Guillaumet also in this group. So it's the remains of the breakaway. Decathlon playing this so well with 2 guys in the break as well. Decathlon have been the big winners, I think, apart from Ineos maybe, of the breakaway. But Axel Laurent is on the limit now. He's starting to rock and roll, and it will soon be time for Carlos Rodriguez to cue the music. But Decathlon having a superb time of things. Bruno Armirail, brilliant ride from the Frenchman. Of course, on his way to Visma Lease-A-Bike by the sounds of reports for next season. And it's a huge ride from Axel Laurent as well, who has just utterly gone pop. Welcome back, Michał Kwiatkowski, to the Tour de France, because that is the doors blown off that I have never seen for many a year. Axel Laurent completely ties up. And now it's the turn of Team Arensman to push on for the Ineos Grenadiers in this breakaway, who are stomping their authority on the race, but are quickly losing riders. Also quickly losing riders are those in the minor positions of GC from the peloton. We've already seen Remco Evenepoel off the back. He's got Warren Barguil on his wheel. He's dispatched of Ewan Costiu right now, but I don't think that's the rider he wants to be competing with. Ilan van Wilder is trying his best to limit the losses for Remco Evenepoel, but I think this is Tour de France over, or Tour de France GC over for Remco. Vlasov now off the back. My little journalist Mika is reporting all this before me. I feel like Mika's Fabrizio Romano right now. Just knows the information before it actually happens. But Lipowitz is continuing. Dutch TV is clear. Unfortunately so, seemingly. Team and Arensman, though, on the front, and I'm sure Dutch TV are having a meltdown. He'll be pacing for Carlos Rodriguez, the Belgian national champion's jersey of Tim Wellens. That's the first I've seen really from him. All Stage is up there in the breakaway as well, and a key element of UAE Team Emirates and Tadej Pogacar making sure that he follows Jonas Vingegaard this stage. Then Mad Rodriguez is leader for today. Nice. Good to see nationalism is across the board and not just in the UK. If Enric Mas is down with Remco Evenepoel, that is a shocker from Movistar. But they've got Castrillo and Rubio still in this breakaway. So they've got something to salvage their stage, as the other Movistar rider in the breakaway, Ivan Romeo, gets swept up by Visma Lease-A-Bike, who are continuing to shed riders in the peloton. Individual by individual, they are going off the back and being put into difficulty. I don't see a Movistar jersey in that group, so Enric Mas is off the back. Really bad sign for the Spaniard on Movistar. And Ben Healy continues in the yellow jersey, being talked up by Jonathan Vaughters for a top 5 overall. And this is the first test for him. But right now, Tadej Pogacar continues. Mika's asking how Narvaez is pulling this off. But Healy's at the back of the group and is clinging on for dear life. The EF team car holding their breath, I'm sure, because this could be Tadej Pogacar moving into the virtual lead of the general classification on the opening climb. And off the back goes Healy. Remco Evenepoel looks so worse for wear right now. He looks terrible. But Tadej Pogacar's pace has dropped a couple of his teammates. Matteo Jorgensen is off the back as Matthias Skjelmoser makes a move off the front. Jorgensen and Yates have been dropped. And Kevin Vauquelin is also off the back. But Decathlon Agir Desert pulling off an absolute masterclass right now. Following is Michael Woods. So you've got Matthias Skjelmoser and Woods up front. And Aurelian Paripantra is chasing this move down. But that's Healy off the back. Matteo Jorgensen being piloted by Simon Yates. And that is dangerous for Visma Lease-A-Bike, because now it's Sepp Kuss and Jonas Vingegaard. Perhaps Jorgensen has blown his doors off across this tour, attacking so often. But we will soon be seeing, I think, Tadej Pogacar move into the virtual lead of the general classification. Mika says Macron screen time, which means I'm about to turn off the TV. Joke. All politicians are nasty, horrible people. And of course, right when the race is hotting up, Emmanuel Macron and Christian Prudhomme are on the screen, doing the square root of nothing right now. Macron wearing a black tie, so I wonder whether it's a black tie event for UAE Team Emirates or Visma Lease-A-Bike right now. At the moment, Buitrago is being put into difficulty. Team and Arensman off the back. Dutch TV probably in tears right now. And Ineos might just be pacing for Carlos Rodriguez GC. Because this looks like the stage win going up the road, and both Decathlon Agir Desert riders are continuing to hang on. As is Ben Healy, who's just about has what I'm calling the peloton within range. Pogacar looks over his left shoulder. Doesn't look to be too bad right now. But what he has seen is Matteo Jorgensen, who doesn't look like himself, to be honest with you, in the peloton. Either way, I think this is a scare for Visma Lease-A-Bike. Tobias Johannesson looks fantastic, I agree with you, Vika. Chatting away to, I think that's Primoz... No, it's not. It's Florian Lipowitz. You can tell because he looks like Steven Kruijswijk on a bike. Or however you pronounce it. Mika, that's another one for you to put in chat. What is the pronunciation of Kruijswijk? Kruijswijk? Paripantra distanced, which means Bruno Armirail is now the Decathlon Agir Desert rider up front. And it's actually being distanced off the pace of Armirai. So Parapantra struggling to hold the wheel of Matthias Skjelmose right now. Kroes, is it Vike? Or Vic? But Pogacar, especially patient right now, sitting in with Jonathan Narvaez, not leaving his leaders too early. And I think he's keeping his cards close to his chest and avoiding attacking too early. Longer sound, not Vic. Okay, so Vike. Cool, good to know. And what will be good to know for Tadej Pogacar is that Tim Wellens has pulled the pin on his breakaway escapade. And that is all he had. So off the back of the breakaway goes Tim Wellens, and his job now will be for his leader, Tadej Pogacar. Meanwhile, the rest of the breakaway look to have joined up to the head of the race, or a couple of riders have bridged over, namely Aina Rubio and Michael Storer. Clement Berthet off the back. Part-time cyclist, part-time follower of the Nijchakker Twitter page. As Simon Yates continues on the front of the peloton. "13 seconds to close for Ben Healy. As right now he gets water poured on him from Harry Sweeney, who has dropped back from the breakaway to try his best to help out the Irishman. Yates out of the saddle though continues. His brother is present in the group. And I'm about to watch Michael Storer attack. This is going to be a test to see how far ahead you are, Mika. It actually looks pretty far because Michael Storer's looking round his left shoulder, looks round his right shoulder, assesses the damage, and off he goes, out of the saddle. Following initially is Aina Rubio of Movistar, Woods as well as in the wheel. Is it Rubio? Or have both Movistar made it up? I think actually it's Armirai, which is mental. It is Bruno Armirai. What a ride. Woods then counters off of the pace of Michael Storer. He's going to want an advantage going into this long descent of both climbs. Because we saw how disrespectfully Dylan Teuns absolutely dunked on him a couple of years ago. On a stage where Pogacar stamped his authority on the Tour de France. Will we see Jonas Vingegaard do that? Like we saw Pogacar do it in 2022 or 2021. Parapantra continuing though, sat in the wheel at the moment of not Carlos Rodriguez. I was thinking Christian Rodriguez, but it's not him either. Actually, it's Raul Garcia Pierna. So Garcia Pierna and Parapantra look like they won't be able to make it back. But they will perhaps be able to join Skjelmose and Rubio. But it's now every rider for himself, really, in this breakaway. And as Raul Garcia Pierna edges away from Aurélien Parapantra, reports from Mika that Vauquelin's out the back. Struggling to hold on off the pace of Simon Yates, and officially now the virtual classification flashes up on the screen and Tadej Pogacar leads the Tour de France once again. Ben Healy has conceded his lead. Remco Evenepoel's dropped out the top 5 at this point, just overtaken by Kevin Vauquelin, who I think is about to hit the struggle bus. And Healy's struggling to hold the wheel of Harry Sweeney right now. It's going to be a long, long 49 kilometres for Ben Healy. And Healy is indeed struggling with the heat. Harry Sweeney sprays him. Healy sprays himself with the bottle. And Marc Soler is rejoining. So, a warning sign for Visma Lease-A-Bike that they just have to continue the pace over the top of this climb to ensure that Marc Soler does not get back. One of the Archaea riders struggling on the rear of the peloton. And with the way the other Archaea rider keeps looking over his shoulder, I think that is Hautacam in difficulty. But this is a fascinating stage that is unfolding at the moment. 1 minute and 53 separates the front of the race to the group of Pogacar and Jonas. Roglic and Lipowitz both present in this group as well. Oscar only there too. Building off a very positive Tour de Suisse. As is Kevin Hautacam, but Hautacam looks to be struggling a little more than the Scotsman right now. But this is the day that Healy concedes the yellow jersey, I'm afraid. And will it be time to rethink the strategy with Ben Healy? Depending, I guess, on how heavily he blows up. But right now, Aina Rubio and Matthias Skjelmoser are about to join up with the front three. So we're back to a leading five. And Bruno Armirail, who has taken the King of the Mountains jersey at 2 races before this season. Already he's picked up the King of the Mountains jersey at the Dauphiné and at Etzulia Basque Country. Looking to make it a hat-trick of King of the Mountains jerseys that he's won. He's got 2 kilometres until he gets to the summit on my screen right now. And the Col du Soulor has gone past incredibly quickly. It's not been littered with major action, but lots of small movements from many riders have helped push the narrative on. As Archaea B&B Hotels are trying their absolute hardest to keep Kevin Hautacam at the back. Bora-Hansgrohe are in front of them. And at the moment look fine, but Remco Evenepoel is bridging up to Ben Healy. So Evenepoel pacing his effort. Of course, he knows how to ride in this situation. Ben Healy in the unknown right now and is struggling to hold his tempo. Out of the saddle he gets to try to latch onto the wheel of Warren Barguil, but realises he can't do that either, so will have to just go at his own effort and watch the back wheel of Harry Sweeney. As once again we see Emmanuel Macron. And now back we go. Hautacam has been dropped from the Vingegaard Pogacar group. Oscar only looks okay. Tobias Johannesson looks good behind him. As Michael Woods accelerates. Of course, needs the advantage going downhill, as we've previously discussed. And is also after the King of the Mountains jersey. Already picked up plenty of points at this Tour de France. Goes into the stage 3rd overall in the King of the Mountains jersey. And with Lenny Martinez dropped, this will be 10 important points for the Canadian if he can get them. Matthias Skjelmoser initially tried to follow, but could not do so. And now he's looking behind to see where Michael Storer is. The answer is slightly distanced from his wheel. And Bruno Armirail choosing to pace his way back. Armirail in the early part of stage 1 liked to go early on the climbs and was dunked on by Benjamin Thomas in that case. In this case, he's letting the others attack and go at his own pace. Armirail catches Storer. Couple of words exchanged. Aina Rubio has not hit the front of this group at all from what I've seen. So he's just sitting in the wheels, but he looks like he's suffering. The Colombian should be fine in this weather though. 1 kilometre to the top of the climb for Storer, Armirail and Rubio. Which means closer to that is Skjelmoser and even closer to the summit is Michael Woods. It looks like his day today. And that is Hautacam off the back. Right as you messaged that, race radio indicated that through my ears. So, good job, Mika. Christian Rodriguez is with him. Arguably the better C. Rodriguez right now, because where is Carlos Rodriguez on the road? And indeed, Ben O'Connor is in the peloton. He is in the GC group. And Matteo Jorgensen is distanced from his Visma Lease-A-Bike trio at the front of the race. Currently sat on the wheel of Tobias Harland Johannesson right now, who will probably have something to prove based on the abuse he got for being involved in the Tadej Pogacar incident. But Woods presses on. He's got to take as much of an advantage over the top of this climb as he possibly can, not just for King of the Mountain points, but also for a potential stage win. Woods presses on though, second oldest rider at the Tour de France, only behind Geraint Thomas. But this is a day for the stage hunters. He's got 1:52 on Pogacar and Jonas, who are yet to make any moves and will be saving themselves for the Hautacam. But right now, I think Woods is only focused on King of the Mountain points. He will take 10 over the top of the Category 1. If he leads over the summit of the next climb as well, Category 2 labelled Col du Soulor, he will take 5 more King of the Mountains points, which I think will move him into the lead? Question mark. So Woods will move himself on to 21 points. If he wins over the next climb, he will move on to 26, which is 1 behind Lenny Martinez, who will not take any points on any of these climbs. Dropped quite a while ago. It is too long to go solo, but watch as Michael Woods gets reeled in, because he is not a good descender at all. I think the man to watch down this descent is probably Bruno Armirail. I don't really know how skilled of a descender he is, but he's got a bigger frame than any of the pure climbers. Simon Yates, though, continues to ride tempo at the front of the race, and Ben Healy is absolutely gone. With the EF team car, Harry Sweeney taking bottles, Healy is pedaling squares at the moment. And this is a man who is suffering, and I think this is a man who's found out that perhaps riding GC is not for him. It was worth a go, but back to the stage hunting, I think. Narvaez continues in the peloton, with Adam Yates as well. And Narvaez has been such a key domestique for Tadej Pogacar early on in this race. He's come into this race clearly in great form. And I was very close to picking Jonathan Narvaez for my fantasy team, so that's a disaster from me. Down the descent goes Woods. Lines look okay for now. Didn't look okay when Dylan Turns was chasing him down a couple of years ago. Will that be in the back of his mind? On this, the first proper descent of the Tour de France. You have him in your Dutch fantasy team, currently 357 in the Netherlands. Nice. But no, 2021, down the descent into Le Grand Bonnant, it was Michael Woods that went over the top of the final climb in first, and he finished the stage 47 seconds behind the winner in third. Dylan Turns caught and passed Woods, Jonas Vingegaard as well, past the Canadian. But everybody is hunting down Michael Woods at the moment. Although Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar will be watching each other, I am sure. A quick fly through of a couple of quotes then, because I've not made these graphics for no reason. Mauro Schmid, yesterday's stage runner-up, said that stage 10 was pretty hard. He had some records on his Garmin after that day, but today was harder. After a rest day, stages like this, there's many guys that want to be in the breakaway. The stages for me will all be quite hard for a sprint, so today was a really good opportunity. Everybody recovered a bit yesterday, so it was hard racing. We all worked well together. We had our highs and lows a little bit during the day, but normally, when you go in a break like this, you have the middle section where you can breathe a bit and recover. I think today, we never really could do that, so that made it quite difficult. And it has been quite difficult for all of the riders in the breakaway today. They've not been given that middle section to have a brief rest, work out how the legs are doing, and kick on from that point. But Mika reports to me that Bruno Armorai is flying down the descent, which is great because my feed has gone to ads right now. So, yeah, I'm going to need all the help you can possibly get, Mika. You can probably tell, which is why I'm waffling through these quote pieces. I only do them because he's already caught Skjelmose. What? Armorai's on an absolute mission, and he's probably going to catch Michael Woods then if he's caught Skjelmose at this point. 3 seconds behind Woods. I told you he sucks. He sucks going downhill. And that was why Michael Woods needed such a gap. Because he's so poor. Now caught Woods. Is he on his own? Has he distanced Storer and Rubio? Skjelmose has nearly crashed. Great, I am missing all of this. So yeah, thank you for keeping me updated, Mika, because I'm sure they're going to show about 27 different Armorai's leading on his own. What? What is going on? Bruno Armorai is an absolute demon. Woods and Skjelmose are together. But this is huge from Bruno Armorai. Skjelmose and Woods are terrible descenders, but Armorai has absolutely used and abused that fact. He's gone clear before the next climb. I briefly touched on Mauro Giannetti, the UAE owner. Not the owner of the UAE, but the UAE Team Emirates XRG team owner. He said, after the crash I was worried, of course the crash of Tadej Pogacar, because you never know when you crash, it could be an easy or a big crash. Fortunately that one wasn't at high speed, it wasn't so damaging. Tadej Pogacar feels okay, so that is the good news. They never deserve to crash. This sport is hard enough, but this is part of the sport and we need to live with it. It was 2 completely different situations. The middle of the race was the middle of the race. The final was 5 kilometres from the finish. All the best riders were together. Everybody decided in front to stop and make the gain with the pedals and not with the luck. He's angry before the crash. He's angry with the crash, should I say, Tadej Pogacar. We need to live with this the day before Hautacam. Tadej is okay. Physically, it's not a problem. I'm about to get my feedback, and Mika has been informing me that Bruno Armorai is looking behind and wondering what has happened. And I am watching Bruno Armorai looking behind and wondering what's going on. Please don't tell me that's 26 seconds on Skjelmose and Woods. There's no way he's already put 30 seconds into those two. But this if I'm Bruno Amarai, I am going on my own for as long as I possibly can. Because, like, what is there to lose? You're not the best climber, and if you get far enough into the distance, they'll start looking at each other. Yeah, Amarai should just press on here. He's got 3.3 kilometres of the Col du Soulor that he's just starting right now. 8.1% average gradient on this climb. But Amarai is clearly the better descender, and look at the amount of descent we have before Hautacam. In fact, let's get it up right now. Bada bing, bada boom. You've got a lot of descent after the Col du Soulor and a lot of time and a lot of a chance for Bruno Amarai to increase his lead. Very brief flat section before Hautacam, and there's a bit of a flat section after Ben. But if I'm Bruno Amarai right now, I'm pacing my effort and making sure that I try and get to the line ahead of these two behind me. So it's Amarai, Skjelmoser and Woods, then Stora and Rubio. And Bruno Amarai continues to press on. Decathlon Azure Desert without a win since Felix Gall took that very, very good stage win that sticks in the memory. Mainly because, you know, I love Felix Gall. But I will shut up about Felix Gall eventually. Don't worry. But Amarai has certainly put himself in the shop window for Visma Lease-A-Bike right now. Either way, I think the last Azure Desert stage win at a Tour de France was Felix Gall, stage 17 of 2023. So they've got something to prove. And right now, Timo Arensman is sat with Carlos Rodriguez and pacing him up this climb for the general classification. Team Ineos Grenadiers are solely focused on the GC. They had 5 riders in this break in the driver's seat, and at the end of the day, Carlos Rodriguez's legs have been absolutely shot, and they have sacrificed the stage win for Rodriguez increase in GC, which I think is bold. Either way, Narvaez is insane right now. And Vauquelin has made it back, indeed, Mika. Vlasov has just been distanced from the Pogacar and Vingegaard group, as is Castrillo, who have been caught from the breakaway. My ear on the ground, Mika, is going to go. Are you going to watch the rest of the stage, or do you have things to do, Mika? Have a good rest of your day, though, and hopefully I'll see you in future streams. Please do, you know, drop into chat on occasion, because it's quite nice to just have somebody to talk to at least. But Remco Evenepoel is now alone. Third on GC entering the day, wearer of the white jersey, sat 500 metres behind the group of Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. And Ben O'Connor has been dropped just now from the Pogacar-Vingegaard group, which I think I'll just now call the favourites. But Remco is close to getting back. I think if he does get back, then he's not going to do much, but it's a performance of a rider who knows how to race a GC. And this is Team Arendsman and Carlos Rodriguez being caught by the peloton. Dutch TV in meltdown. Dutch population in meltdown. And slipping down the favourites group they go. Will they be spat straight out the back? I think they might, with the way they've been pacing and the difference in speed between the favourites group and those two. Armorai continues though, as does Ben Healy in the LA jersey, who is far, far back, approaching 3 minutes now behind the group of the favourites. And he's got a couple of riders with him. Harry Sweeney as a teammate, of course, but 2 other riders have clung onto the rear, one of which is Valentin Madoua, and the other one for Total Energy is Jordan Jaeger, who is doing his own little GC ride, I think, at the moment. Sat in 14th, so another top 15 GC guy with Ben Healy. But it's probably one of the worst of the top 15 to have with you. No offence to Jordan Jaeger, but yeah, I don't think he's on the level of the likes of Rodriguez, Skjelmose, Felix Gall, etc. And speaking of Skjelmose, he's been reeled in, of course, by Woods earlier, or has reeled in Woods, and both of them have been reeled in by Michael Storer. Ida Rubio has been dropped from those 3, but Bruno Armorai is hitting out for a chance at stage victory as Matteo Jorgensen is dropped again from the favourites group. So the dual leader strategy for Visma Lease-A-Bike is now out of the window. Kevin Vauquelin hanging on, as is Felix Gall. Gall looks a little bit better than Vauquelin at the moment, but I think both of them will fall by the wayside on the Hautacam. Simon Yates looks over his right shoulder. Perhaps just trying to pace Jorgensen for as much as possible to make sure that the gap is close enough for him to pull it back on the descent, as Arkea BNB tells, shout some motivation down the radio to Kevin Vauquelin. But this is advantage only if Vauquelin drops. It's Sepp Kuss, sorry, at the back looking over his shoulder, which is why I guess he looked so fresh, because Kuss has been the best of the Visma Lease-A-Bike domestiques right now. And that includes Matteo Jorgensen, who seemingly has gone pop. And I think the pace in the second group, now that Rubio has caught them, shows that Bruno Armorai is in the driver's seat for this. And it might be a big opportunity for a French stage winner up Hautacam. Of course, he's still got a long, long way to go. 35 kilometres. And he's got just over 2 minutes on Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. But it's so hard to tell how this stage is going to work out now that Jorgensen is clearly showing weakness. Somebody who's not, though, is Bruno Armorai, who's got 400 metres until he goes over the top of the third climb of the day and will take 5 points to his King of the Mountains account that he has nothing in right now. Simon Yates being outclimbed at the moment by Bruno Armorai. Of course, Armorai has different objectives to Simon Yates, but just interesting to view. And how long can Simon Yates continue to pace? Will he be able to get over the Col du Soulor? Certainly Bruno Armorai will, at the head of the race, performing for Emmanuel Macron right now. Over the top goes Armorai. And he has 1 minute on the group, including Skjelmose. And that gap will increase as we go down the descent, and the Skjelmoser group are pretty much track standing on the Col du Soulor, looking at each other to see who's going to pace, and this is advantage Bruno Armorai, who should not slow up for the rest of this stage. Matthias Skjelmoser accelerates. Woods was caught with his hands in his pockets, and as a result has not been able to latch onto the move. Neither has Aina Rubio, who is fighting to stay in the wheel of the Canadian, but Michael Storer has followed Matthias Skjelmoser, and I think there's a mutual agreement now that this group are not working with each other, and Bruno Armorai needs to be chased. Skjelmoser goes over the top of the climb. Now we will see his descending once again. Skjelmoser and Woods, two very poor descenders in the grand scheme of things, as Simon Yates is off the back with Remco Evenepoel. So Visma Lease-A-Bike lose another domestique. And increasingly, this is Visma Lease-A-Bike on the back foot, I think. And now, Adam Yates is on the front for UAE Team Emirates. So UAE Team Emirates XRG still not using Jonathan Narvaez, who sits behind Tadej Pogacar waiting for his time to launch. He might be the man for the couple of valley roads. But now UAE Team Emirates XRG are taking control of things again. We've seen Nils Pollitt early on in the stage, monitoring brake formation. Tim Wellens, I think, is still somewhere between these two groups. I will check that, because I've not seen any of the Belgian national champion for a long time. He might be more than dropped by this point, but I've honestly got no idea where he is on the road right now. But individual riders being dropped out, that's Garcia Pierna, so I'm wondering whether Tim Wellens is still yet to join up with this favourites group. So Wellens still has to be used, and suddenly this is falling more and more into UAE Team Emirates' hands. And speaking of UAE Team Emirates, Tadej Pogacar did not meet the media after the finish, went straight to the doctor, but did release an audio clip saying, "I'm quite okay, I'm a bit beaten up, but we've been through worse days. It's been a hectic day yesterday from start to finish. In the end, I had a little bit of a crash. Thanks to the peloton in front, they waited. The race was more or less over back there, but still, they could take time, not too much, but I'd need to go deep to come back like this. Really big respect to everybody in front. We came down from the climb, and I think everybody was a bit a block. There were attacks from Matteo Jorgensen and Jonas Vingegaard. They really put everybody on the limit. Jordi Narvaez did a super job. He started to control a little bit the group, but of course, people want to take any seconds into a final like this. They start to attack, people start to follow. Unfortunately, one rider decided to follow from the left to the right side of the road. He didn't see me and totally cut my front wheel off. Luckily, I just have a bit of skin off, but I was scared when I saw the sidewalk that I was going headfirst into it. Luckily, my skin is tough and stopped me before the sidewalk. There's a big day coming tomorrow. We'll see how I recover. Normally, a day after a crash, you're never at the best, but I will give my best tomorrow and we'll see. I think we are ready as a team for Hautacam, and they certainly have been to begin today's stage, and this is where they sit at the moment. Certainly have multiple domestiques to use up on this descent now of the Col du Soulor. Groups are going over the top in individuals now, but you've got the Pogacar, Jonas Vingegaard group that have now crested the climb and are on the descent, as is Bruno Armorai, who should increase his gap to Matthias Skjelmoser and Michael Storer. Might increase it even more if Skjelmoser is on the front, because we've already seen his lack of descending ability compared to Bruno Armorai. Remco Evenepoel, though, is continuing to dangle off the rear of the Vingegaard-Pogacar group. Either way, just to wrap up the quotes from yesterday, the Uno X director sportif Christian Andersen, speaking about Jonas Abrahamsen's stage win, said we were behind him for a short while because the distance was too short, so we couldn't stay there. He had to attack where him and Mauro Schmid went away. We didn't get caught by Mathieu van der Poel and his gang up there, so that was quite important if we had to win. Into the sprint, we just had to stay calm and take his chance. The wind came from behind. They had to work well together until the last kilometre. That was my most important thing. Then they could decide who could win in the last kilometre. It's amazing and everybody is happy. It was our goal and now we've reached our goal, so I just don't know what we'll have to do for the rest of the tour. I think we will just enjoy it. And another man who enjoyed his breakaway escapade was Fred Wright, who after the stage spoke and said, after last year going home on stage 11, I saw the stage today and I thought I'd give it a go. It's a good one to go for, but I just didn't have it in the end. I didn't really expect it. I knew they'd come from behind. I felt okay. I knew I didn't want to pull, but I just wanted to hold the wheel on the steeper parts. I knew Mauro Schmid would be strong. I didn't have it on that last little kick though. And then I couldn't give Quinn Simmons a turn where he caught me in the valley. That last climb was just horrible. I just closed my eyes. Mathieu van der Poel came past me at 3 times the speed, which is a bit demoralising, but a headwind in the finish after a sketchy descent, maybe there was a chance to come back. In the end though, it was a shame. I was feeling great. That was probably some of my best legs, but it's the Tour, isn't it? To be honest, I was quite pleased with the way I rode. Obviously you try and do as little as possible, but we were doing a really good job of keeping them at bay. Me and Mathieu Bergado, that was a hard bridge. We were fist bumping when we got there, like yeah, we made it. Because after a break fight like that, you're already on the limit when you're going for it. I wanted to race it like a one-day race, and I did, so I hope I'm not suffering too much tomorrow. I knew that Schmid was the man to beat, because I'd have him in a sprint. I didn't have the legs though. I'm sure there will be other days. I hope there will be other days at least. It was about saving the legs for the final, but I didn't tick that box, unfortunately. And Tim Wellens is back in the Pogacar Jonas Vingegaard group. I was wondering where he was, but he's waited on the descent and will now be used to pull in the valleys. And this is a great tactical performance from UAE Team Emirates. There were times where I thought they'd lost it, but Tim Wellens has arrived just at the right time for Tadej Pogacar. Remco Evenepoel trying to get back onto the rear of the Vingegaard and Pogacar group. Ben O'Connor is there, as well as Harold Tejada and Simon Yates as well. I'm not sure where Jorgensen is in all of this melee. But Remco's not panicking and has just about made it back. Big ride from Remco. Paces himself back onto the group of favourites, and suddenly that race is wide open again. I really thought he was in serious danger, but it's a great ride from Remco. As it is from Bruno Amarai, who has 1 minute and 24 seconds on Matthias Skjelmoser, and he opens the gap on every single descent. Soon, it's going to open up even more, because he's got a brief section of valley, and then it drops downhill again, with steeper gradients than the last downhill. And Amarai is continuing to extend on the group of Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. This will be an incredibly surprise winner at Hautacam if he can make it. I still don't think he will. But Armorai is in the driver's seat of this race and is driving it on at the front, but driving it on at the front of the peloton, which I am now calling the peloton again because it's swelled in rider number, is Tim Wellens in the Belgian national champions jersey. On his wheel is Jonathan Narvaez. And I'm wondering where Adam Yates is right now. But they've gone to another ad break. And the last one, which means I can then get through every other set of quotes that I've possibly got. And we've done Fred Wright, which means we've only got Matteo Jorgensen and Tadej Pogacar left. And we've done the Jorgensen quotes earlier on in the stage. So here is what Pogacar had to say ahead of the stage. This is the only interview that I got before the stage began. And it's an update on his condition. Pogacar says, "I'm okay. It's nothing too bad. Just my whole left arm is open completely, which is why I've got the bandages on. It was more burned off skin and I hit my hip and shoulder a little bit. Luckily, I was back on the bike quite fast. Today is another day. It's not the first time I've crashed and continued the race, so we'll see how the legs are. The legs are obviously more important than my arms, right? So I hope they are turning well." Brief fighting talk from Pogacar. Certainly not as... There's been not as much fist swinging from Pogacar after his crash than we've seen from Matteo Jorgensen. And that seems to have backfired on the American, who has been put into difficulty on multiple occasions already this stage. So the secondary GC rider play from Visma Lease-A-Bike is now no more. Weakness has been shown by Jorgensen, so Pogacar is now in a 1v1 with Jonas Vingegaard, and he knows it, the UAE team know it, and the Visma Lease-A-Bike team now know it. They have used Matteo Jorgensen to the maximum capacity. He was so active in the attacks early on in the first week, and it now means that Jonas Vingegaard is in a 1v1 head-to-head battle, as we have seen in the previous 5 years of this race. Or should I say 4 years, actually, because Pogacar beat Roglic that first time. But it's what we've seen for the past 4. Vingegaard versus Pogacar, and the first climb we will see them do battle is Hautacam. 13.5 kilometres, 7.9% average. But it will be started by Bruno Armorai, who is up front and very much enjoying his day up the road, having a fantastic performance, a career stage perhaps. We've seen him in the pink jersey before, but this is something new for Bruno. 31 years of age, the Frenchman, and a 3-time time trial champion of France. Did a good performance on that Tour de France time trial, finishing 4th on the stage, and has won the mountains classification, as I was discussing earlier with this stage with Mika at Itzulia Basque Country and Criterium de Dauphiné. So the last 2 stage races he's entered, he's won the King of the Mountains jersey. So one to keep an eye on. Good climber, clearly, by his King of the Mountains record. But this is totally different. This is a stage win at play, and a stage win that he has never had at World Tour level. Hasn't won much at all in his career, and this is absolutely the most at stake for Bruno Armorai. Still probably has nothing to lose. Where are the Spanish guys? Carlos Rodriguez was in the breakaway, but has been dropped. He was riding for GC, I think, because Tiemann Arensman was with him for Ineos Grenadiers. And yeah, he's riding his own pace because he's been caught by the peloton passed by the peloton. So bad day for Carlos Rodriguez, because I was expecting him to be up there. Rubio's the highest placed Spanish speaker, sat in the chasing group, which is about to be caught by the Pogacar Jonas Vingegaard group. But I think that's all you really need to know about the Spanish guys right now. Jonas Vingegaard was in the break as well, but he was working for Manny Buchmann. Either way, Bruno Armirail has got nearly 2 minutes. Enric Mas, yes, he was clinging onto the back of the peloton for a long time, but got dropped quite early. I'll try and find where he is right now for you. I think he's pretty far behind. He's certainly somewhere between the Ben Healy group and the group of Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard, I think. He's definitely not in that Pogacar-Vingegaard group. He's just off the back of it, I think. So he's in trouble as well. It's been a really bad day for the Spanish guys, to be honest with you. But still, Armirail's on 2 minutes, and that shows you the descending ability of the chasing 4 riders, who will soon look behind them and see Tim Wellens' Belgian national champions jersey chasing them down. Tobias Harland Johannesson making his way up the peloton after grabbing some assistance from the UAE team car. But right now, Tim Wellens is reeling the chase group in, which means one rider will be alone up front. And I'm sure Visma Lease-A-Bike will be rubbing their hands with joy that they have negotiated with Bruno Armirail before this point, because his contract value is probably going through the roof right now. Wellens is clearly pressing on because the peloton group is stretched out. And I think that is the group of Enric Mas, maybe? Certainly is Pablo Castrillo, who's communicating with the team car. Actually, it's the group of Ben Healy, so Mas is further up the road than this. But Castrillo is in that group. Harold Tejada is in that group as well, and he's got a teammate with him in Simone Velasco. Other riders included in that group are Ewan Costiu, Warren Barguil, and Steph Kras. But right now we're approaching the foot of Hautacam. 18 kilometres in the day to go for Bruno Armirail, who I think is just focusing on his own efforts, or should do at this point, because the stage win will go to the peloton. You would expect 1 minute 55, and Tim Wellens is starting to drill into this gap. The legs are probably tying up for Bruno Armirail. But Armirail, a man from this sort of area of France, is stamping his authority on this race. And it's been enjoyable to watch. A real surprise of the day, but somebody who has come into this Tour de France in sizzling form and is continuing to keep up that level as we go into the mountains. Unlike what we've seen from Kevin Vauquelin, Remco Evenepoel, Ben Healy as well. Vauquelin and Evenepoel have managed to get back to the peloton, but Healy, I think, is the big loser of the day, paying for the efforts earlier on in this tour. He is 5 minutes and 53 behind our leader on the road, which is Bruno Armirail right now. And he's got 1 minute 55 on the peloton group. 20 minutes behind is the green jersey of Jonathan Milan, who has organised the gruppetto from the foot of the Col du Soulor, not bothering to follow the peloton. And it was at that point that Visma Lease-A-Bike took it up with the likes of Victor Campenaerts and Tadej Pogacar. But they've slightly lost control of this race. And this is such an intriguing situation right now as the peloton approaches the foot of Hautacam. Discussions being had between Bruno Armirail and the Decathlon Auch team car. Probably just wanting Armirail to manage his effort right now. I think that's what I'm guessing is based on the hand movements of the director sportif in the team car. Armirail, of course, signed by Decathlon from Groupama FDJ last season. And he's been at FDJ since 2017, before leaving for Auch in 2024. And is out of contract at the end of this season. Lots of murmurings of him going to Visma Lease-A-Bike. And right now, Armirail is probably making his agent very happy because his contract value is going to go up and up the longer that he's in this breakaway. Racing for himself as well as racing for the team, I guess, in that regard. And he is about to get to Auch and begin the serious climb of the Hautacam. He's got 1 kilometre until he gets there. And then it's going to be him versus the mountain. Not going to be interested in Jonas Vingegaard or Tadej Pogacar's movements in the peloton. And I don't think he should be told by the team car. It's just an individual time trial effort for the individual time trial champion of France. Up Hautacam. The riders that have looked good so far are Oscar Onley and Tobias Harlan Johannesson, but Johannesson especially has passed the eye test, which means absolutely nothing for a man that has not raced in the peloton. But either way, that's my opinions on who looks good and who doesn't. Certainly looking good at the moment is Bruno Armirail, but I think everybody could guess that with the way he's 1 minute and 53 off the front of the race right now. Riding on the hoods and about to begin the savage percentages of the Hautacam climb. So just a reminder of what I believe is going to happen on this particular stage. 13.5 kilometres, of course, 7.8% average. And it's a fairly constant gradient on the Hautacam, but the second half is steeper than the first. So second half is about 1% steeper than the first half, which isn't much on paper, but the difference between riding on 8 and 7, or 8.5 and 7.5, is stark. So what I'm trying to say really is that what you'll see is the best climber at the race win the stage. I'm guessing it will be a GC guy. My pick of the day was Jonas Vingegaard, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tadej Pogacar throws in a haymaker if he feels like it. Armirail, though, looking ahead into the distance, focusing on every single pedal stroke. And right now, UAE Team Emirates are ripping the race apart as they enter Hautacam. Soon, Tim Wellens will have completed his turn. Had a big day today, getting into the breakaway, the only UAE Team Emirates rider to make it. And he will very shortly hand over to Adam Yates, that second wheel. Jonathan Narvaez still in this group as well for Tadej Pogacar. And Matteo Jorgensen slots himself onto the wheel of Adam Yates, I think, to show that he is in a domestique role, lets the wheel go, and Jonathan Narvaez rolls through. Tadej Pogacar seated right now, fourth wheel in the train. As Garcia Pierna struggles to cling on, as does Matthias Skjelmose. And there's a little bit of ground being made between Skjelmose's front wheel and Stora's back wheel. But Wellens is continuing on the front of the race. And this is Matteo Jorgensen out of the back. So Jorgensen has packed up his things and will focus on the next stage, because Jorgensen's GC hopes are over. Simon Yates as well has also gone off the back. Jorgensen further up the road, but not that far, and distanced from the Pogacar group. And suddenly, this is Jonas Vingegaard again, with no teammates to help him out. Sepp Kuss is not near him at the moment, as Remco Evenepoel is out the saddle. And this is Sepp Kuss really struggling. So Jonas Vingegaard is alone against 4 UAE Team Emirates riders. Vingegaard and Visma Lease-A-Bike alone up against Tim Wellens, Jonathan Narvaez, Adam Yates and Tadej Pogacar. This is a terrible situation for the Dane on a day where we expected him to throw the first hammer blow. He might be fighting on the back foot now. Remco Evenepoel being dropped, pacing his own effort right now. And Vauquelin is also losing the wheels on the right-hand side. I can see his rear wheel heading to the back of the favourites group. Tim Wellens has pulled the pin on his day. Massive ride from the Belgian national champion, but it's now time for the former Ecuadorian national champion to take things up. Couple of looks over the shoulder from Jonathan Narvaez, and now is his time to hit the climb hard. This is mental. Tadej Pogacar goes clear and UAE Team Emirates rip it from the foot. Pogacar, seated acceleration. Jonas Vingegaard cannot follow. This is a massive, massive move from Tadej Pogacar. And watch the time get absolutely smashed between Pogacar and Bruno Armoraj. 40 seconds already. Remember, he had just under 2 minutes entering the climb. And this is a destruction from Tadej Pogacar. Undertaker-style move from Tadej Pogacar. You thought I was dead. And immediately at the foot of Hautacam, throws the hammer. And there was kind of like it was super confusing with the way it was taken up, but it was a killer acceleration from Wellens, followed by Narvaez, and then there was a bit of confusion between Narvaez and Yates, but off goes Pogacar. And that's massive. Pogacar is keeping the gap to Jonas Vingegaard, who is going at his own pace. But this is a move from afar from the world champion. And now we will see how both of them perform on the long climbs. 13.5 kilometres, 7.9%. And Pogacar takes an advantage early on. In goes the earpiece. Pogacar needs to know what's going on. Lipowitz is the next rider they've got on the road. But individuals are going to be all over the place now on Hautacam. Right now, only Lipowitz, Roglic and Johannesson are in a 4-man chase group. And it was Narvaez that ripped it from the foot. And Pogacar said, "Thank you very much. Seated acceleration. See you later, Jonas Vingegaard." Past Bruno Armirail he goes. And Tadej Pogacar is the new leader of the stage. It was Narvaez actually that pretty much prized Jonas Vingegaard away from the wheel of Pogacar. So it's a massive ride from Jonathan Narvaez. 12 seconds between Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar. And Pogacar looking down at his head unit, he is clearly holding a specific wattage and a specific pace that he feels that he can do. Vingegaard looks down, also doing his own tempo, but needs to lock in soon. It's now a tactical battle between Pogacar and Vingegaard, but also a battle of the legs. They've got a minute on Remco Evenepoel, Vauquelin and Gal in the 4th group on the road. But I don't think Vingegaard looks as comfortable as Tadej Pogacar at the moment. And this is a massive move and a statement of intent from Tadej Pogacar that this Tour de France is his to lose. And not Jonas Vingegaard's to win. Pogacar moves out of sight of Jonas Vingegaard, and it might be a case of out of mind by the time this stage finishes. Visma Lease-A-Bike about to come onto the radio. Are we going to hear, "Come on, Jonas. You can catch him back. Come on, Jonas," is what the Visma Lease-A-Bike radio has probably said. I'm not listening to it right now. Yeah, no, I've just heard it, and yeah, I was pretty close. Pogacar keeps messing around with his earpiece. It's something to worry about, I suppose, rather than the legs, but Primož Roglic now is getting dropped off the pace of Florian Lipowitz, his own teammate, and we're starting to see the Red Bull hierarchy form, maybe. Johannesson and Onley are on the wheel of Lipowitz, who has caught and passed Bruno Armirail. Roglic accelerates to get back on. Lipowitz looks over his shoulder and says, "Oops, sorry about that, Primož." But riders all over the road now, and the leading one is the world champion Tadej Pogacar, who has 16 seconds on Jonas Vingegaard, 50 seconds on what they're calling the chase group of only Lipowitz, Roglic and Johannesson, and 1 minute and 1 on Kevin Vauquelin, who has dropped Remco Evenepoel and Felix Gal by about 10 seconds on the road. So in attempting to put Pogacar on the back foot, Visma Lease-A-Bike have accidentally left their team leader, Jonas Vingegaard, in trouble. And this is going to require a serious autopsy for Visma Lease-A-Bike on how they've managed to handle this stage the way they have. It's going to take some detective work, as is the Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe strategy, because Primož Roglic looks so in trouble. Remco Evenepoel, Jersey Open, is pacing his own race and is doing it quite well at the moment. Bruno Armirail dropping to Felix Gall, gives him a brief turn before Gall moves along and will pace the rest of this climb at his own tempo. But the gap just keeps on going out, and this is Tadej Pogacar putting down a clear marker to Visma Lease-A-Bike. You can throw Matteo Jorgensen at me. Receives a bottle from the Shimano neutral service. Splashes a brief bit over himself and discards it to the side of the road. But Pogacar, second of course on Hautacam in 2022 behind Jonas Vingegaard, who stamped his authority on the Tour de France that stage. It's a case of vice versa today. Pogacar's got 9 kilometres to go, and there is still a long way in this climb. But both of them are pacing their efforts. And right now, Tadej Pogacar is coming out of the blocks quicker than Jonas Vingegaard. It's a pure battle of the legs. And Pogacar is winning it at the moment. Kevin Vauquelin now being passed by the UAE team car, who wants to get to Tadej Pogacar. And maybe this is a plan from Pogacar to open up the gap as far as possible early on so that he can get that minute where the UAE Team Emirates team car can sit between him and Jonas Vingegaard. Vauquelin, though, has nearly got back on to the chasing group of including Primoz Roglic, Lipowitz, Ontley and Johannesson, the other 3 riders in the group. But Roglic will be benefiting from Remco Evenepoel being put in trouble, and Vauquelin will do the same. Massive ride from Kevin Vauquelin at the moment. I thought the first week honeymoon was over. Had such a positive first week, but seems to have kicked on early in the second week of racing after tying up on stage 10. But Pogacar, bandaged left arm, doesn't really matter for the Slovenian because the gap is now 40 seconds on Jonas Vingegaard. And remember, he came into this race with a clear gap on the Dane. Into Toulouse, remember, he had, what, let me just check. A minute and 17 seconds on Jonas Vingegaard. So we're approaching the 2-minute mark on virtual general classification right now between Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar. And it is in favour of the world champion. The gap continues to increase, but increase little by little. There's certainly enough time to dig into the mental reserves and find something from somewhere, but you're going to have to do it soon with 7.5 kilometres to go and a 45-second gap on the road. It is about pacing your effort though, and Pogacar right now is pacing at a higher level than Jonas Vingegaard. Can he keep it up though? It looks like the Pogacar pace has slowed, maybe flicked it down a gear or two. And Jonas gets out of the saddle. Round one of the switchbacks. Looks like he's in serious trouble. Had a brief look down at his handlebars and his head unit as Remco Evenepoel and Felix Gall both pacing their own efforts as well. Roglic, Lipowitz, Vauquelin, Ontley and Johannesson are a bit more in a race, but right now it's a time trial between Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard on the Hautacam. Remco Evenepoel continuing, and Primoz Roglic again yo-yoing off the back of the Lipowitz group. Johannesson has increased the pace. Florian Lipowitz follows, looks over his right shoulder, sees Roglic in trouble, and slows up once again. As Pogacar continues through the hordes of fans on the Hautacam. And the time gap just keeps on gradually ticking one by one, second by second, in favour of Pogacar. First we've seen of Ben Healy for a while. He is nearly 7 minutes off the rear of Tadej Pogacar. And Jonas Vingegaard's gritting his teeth. This is Vingegaard in pain. After Pogacar was in a brief bit of pain following his road rash on yesterday's stage, Hautacam goes pop once again. And Primož Roglic distances him. Roglic having troubles of his own though, trying to hold the wheel of Oscar Onley and Tobias Harlan Johannesson. Right now the Slovenian's doing that. But this is the race he's in for the podium. Remco Evenepoel is only 14 seconds behind this group, as is Felix Gall, so keep an eye on those two. But right now it's Evenepoel, Onley, Roglic and Lipowitz in a battle for the general classification podium right now. And Felix Gall slowly being distanced by Remco Evenepoel. But Pogacar starting to suffer. However, it doesn't really matter at the moment because he's got 54 seconds on Jonas Vingegaard and looks a lot more in control of his own effort, with 6.4 kilometres to go until the summit. Vingegaard looks in serious danger. Picks up a bottle, squirts it over his back, then drinks a brief bit of it, doesn't opt for the gel on the bottle, and discards it. But Vingegaard is really suffering now. I thought Visma would throw the kitchen sink at it. Matteo Jorgensen was very quickly dropped early on, and I think it was panic stations for Visma Lease-A-Bike. And Pogacar has benefited from the panic, I think, in the Visma Lease-A-Bike team that this has not worked. As the gap approaches 1 minute, and Pogacar stamps his authority on the general classification of this race. Going for Tour de France victory number 4, sorry. He did number 3, of course, last year. As we get a bit of bird cam on the mountains. But right now, it's Tadej Pogacar who's doing the flying at the moment. Over a minute ahead now of Jonas Vingegaard. But Vingegaard has held it now, just below the minute counter. Of course, the time gap's attached to the camera motos, so it's hard to tell the exact gap at all times. Remco Evenepoel now 2 minutes and 12 seconds behind Tadej Pogacar, but he's not concerned about the gap to Pogacar or Jonas Vingegaard. He's interested in Primož Roglic, who sits 3 minutes 41 down in the general classification, and Florian Lipowitz, who sits 3 minutes and 34 seconds down in GC. Evenepoel has the advantage going into the stage there of being 1.5 minutes down on Ben Healy, who is down and out of the GC battle on this stage. But right now, Tadej Pogacar is looking at a lead of around 2 minutes 17 seconds on Jonas Vingegaard. As it's the first I've seen the gap slip above 1 minute. brief segment of 1 minute and 1 second there as Tobias Johannesson is out of the saddle, off the pace of Oscar Onley. Florian Lipowitz then goes for an acceleration by the looks of things, increases the tempo and drops Primoz Roglic off the wheel of Oscar Onley. Onley can match the acceleration from Florian Lipowitz as Roglic tries to bridge across to the Brit and the German. Meanwhile, Johannesson really has to dig in to get to the wheel of Roglic. Right now, he's not doing that. But right now, Onley looks very, very good. Better than Primoz Roglic. We'll see how Florian Lipowitz turns out on this climb. But right now, 5.3 kilometres to go for Tadej Pogacar. And this is a statement ride from Tadej. For a brief moment there, it looked like he was in trouble. He seems to have conquered that particular demon right now and has got back to a usual pacing strategy. If anything, from the helicopter camera, the way he looks towards the side of the road, it looks like he's out for a Sunday ride and not at the front of one of the Queen stages of this Tour de France. Messing around with the head unit at the moment. Mouth open, but certainly looks better than Jonas Vingegaard does. Remco Evenepoel has caught and passed Kevin Vauquelin of Arkea B&B Hotels, who is really struggling, and this is a serious acceleration now from Florian Lipowitz. And an acceleration that Oscar Onley is bridging up to. Lipowitz is stamping his authority on Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe's team. Came in as a teammate for Primoz Roglic, did all the talking in the interviews in week 1 that he is riding for the Slovenian, but now he's got the free pass to go ahead, and he has taken the chance with both hands. Oscar Onley, though, has responded and responded well and comes to the front. Onley and Lipowitz sat 3rd and 4th now on the road. And this is the podium battle. Brief chat between the pair. And now it's a battle between those two and Remco Evenepoel, by the looks of things. Lots of individual squabbles going on at this tour. But one that seems to be being solved on the roads of stage 12 is Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. The gap is now 1 minute and 14 seconds between Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. And he's got 400 metres on the Dane, who is so far down the road now that it looks like a case of down and out for Jonas Vingegaard. Comfortably defeated on the roads. And at the moment, actually, you're looking at the Onley and Lipowitz gap, which is now just under 1 minute to Jonas Vingegaard. But with the way Vingegaard seems defeated at the chance of the stage win, could this open up a chance for Onley and Lipowitz, who look fairly fresh, to close in on the Dane? Evenepoel gets offered a bottle by the motorbike. Initially refuses, but decides to take it. Down the back it goes. Brief bit into the mouth and then onto the helmet before chucking it to the left-hand side of the road, where it will be picked up by a fan, I'm sure. Meanwhile, Onley and Lipowitz continue their crusade up the climb. Big day for both of these guys in the GC. Onley proving that he can do it on the large mountain stages, and Lipowitz proving that he is the new leader of Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. Now that Lipowitz has broken the group as well in 2, does this mean that the pair of Lipowitz and Onley can press on without having Johannesson getting a free ride because he was on the back of that group, barely taking a pull on the front. And Lipowitz and Onley looked the two strongest riders. Vingegaard gets out the saddle briefly, settles back in, and is really, really on the back foot now, and very far behind Tadej Pogacar. The camera pans up as Florian Lipowitz discards of Oscar Onley. Was this an attack, or was this just sheer increase in pace from Florian Lipowitz? Onley looks to be clawing the advantage back, so these two are still battling with each other. Lipowitz seemingly only wants to ride this climb alone. Meanwhile, Oscar Onley is pacing him back, digging deep, and bringing the Bora rider back. Round Danish corner, where they have seen Jonas Vingegaard be put into severe difficulty from Tadej Pogacar. Skjelmose not be beneficial from the breakaway. And a breakaway that was huge at the start of the day has been controlled by the likes of UNOX and UAE Team Emirates. And this is why, because Tadej Pogacar is running away with this race, and perhaps the Tour de France with it. Stage 12, and by the looks of things, this Tour de France might just be over, because Tadej Pogacar is approaching the 90-second gap now to Jonas Vingegaard. Pogacar continues up the climb. His eyes will solely be set on the summit of Hautacam, which will arrive in 3 kilometres time. He'll have time to celebrate if he wants to. Or will he be interested in taking every single second that he possibly can? Vingegaard. Brief expletive. But he is really, really in pain right now. Both mentally and physically, I'm guessing. Struggling on the bike. I've never seen Jonas Vingegaard look this bad. He's looked pale and sick at times, but this is just thoroughly beaten, I think. And is this the passing of the torch firmly into the hand of Tadej Pogacar? Vingegaard had a brief run, but Pogacar has crushed Jonas Vingegaard into the ground on this stage. And right now, Florian Lipowitz looks like the man that Vingegaard needs to be worrying about. Because at the moment, is he going to take 6 bonus seconds for finishing second on the stage? Evenepoel now at 3 minutes down on Tadej Pogacar. But that's not going to be in Pogacar's head at all. All he's going to be thinking about is the Danish helmet of Jonas Vingegaard, manoeuvring his way up the climb. Passes the camera motorbike. And continues up the climb. The moment, though, that Pogacar attacked, Vingegaard was put into difficulty. We didn't see him give it a go on any of the previous climbs. If he had the legs and was on a really good day, we perhaps could have seen an acceleration on the Soulor or the Bordea. But it was at the foot of Hautacam that the race was decided. Jonathan Narvaez, with a devilish tempo on the front, the Ecuadorian national champion, thinned it to just Pogacar and Vingegaard, and you saw the elastic snapping even before Pogacar made that seated acceleration, and Lipowitz is almost within sight of Jonas Vingegaard. Passing the Basque fans with the faces of Jonas Aguirre and Mikel Landa, among other Basque riders. But it's not extremely unlikely that Lipowitz can bring this back. He also looks like he's struggling, but Jonas Vingegaard has looked in trouble for much longer than Lipowitz has. Lipowitz, of course, less experienced. As Evenepoel gets hit by a flag and complains, rightly so. But Evenepoel's going to be frustrated with this performance, I think. As good of a performance as it has been, and as well as he's kept the gap low to the riders that he needed to, he is still going to finish behind the likes of Lipowitz, Onley, Harlan Johannesson and Roglic as it stands. And a rider that's going to be all of those names is Tadej Pogacar, who has 2 kilometres of this climb left to seal what looks like a Tour de France victory, barring incident or accident. Pogacar continues, and will just press this one onto the line. Has never looked in trouble whatsoever. Meanwhile, Jonas Vingegaard, pretty much from the foot of Hautacam, has looked in danger of throwing his Tour de France away. And right now, second is going to be the best that he can get on the stage. Florian Lipowitz, though, is after that silver medal on this particular stage. Will he be able to turn it round in GC? Highly doubt it. But Pogacar has looked so controlled and so measured. Just had a Discord DM from the guy I do the podcast with, Jonas Vingegaard fan, which I think you can tell what the message is without me having to read it out. He is a bit of a die-hard Jonas Vingegaard fan, and I'm going to have plenty of fun on my podcast tonight. Anyway, 1.4 kilometres to go, and the world champion is proving why he is the world champion. As Lipowitz continues to make his way through the fans. Sitting 8th overall, entering the stage. This could be a massive gain for Florian Lipowitz on the road. He's got 20 seconds on Oscar Onley, 32 on Tobias Harlan Johannesson, and nearly a minute on his teammate Primoz Roglic. Massive, massive move from Lipowitz, who of course was in the top 10 of the Vuelta a España, the first Grand Tour he finished last year, finishing 7th. And showing signs as to why he is an elite climber. And this is the first we've seen Pogacar properly rock on the bike. But he's only has to do this for another 1,100 metres underneath the Flamme Rouge now for Pogacar. And this is the statement of intent at the Tour de France. And a stage that will be remembered as, I believe, the first opportunity that Pogacar snatched the yellow jersey from underneath Jonas Vingegaard. A 12-kilometre solo effort will be completed by Pogacar. He usually leaves it till late and the sprint, but Pogacar gritting his teeth. He wants every second he can possibly get. It's the time trial tomorrow, of course, where he put time into Jonas Vingegaard beforehand. But Pogacar has made Visma Lease-A-Bike, and more importantly, Jonas Vingegaard, crumble off his own tempo. The camera on Jonas Vingegaard flicks to the side and sees Florian Lipowitz chasing him down, but Jonas Vingegaard should finish second on the stage. It's going to be around 2 minutes of a gap between Vingegaard and Pogacar by the time he gets over the line in Hautacam. And on a stage that had so much memories for him in 2022, winning in the yellow jersey and dispatching of Tadej Pogacar, Pogacar has done exactly the same to Jonas Vingegaard today. It is 1-1, and he has done it in the most emphatic fashion. Meanwhile, Lipowitz is going to make a big jump in the general classification, but that is a side point because Tadej Pogacar doesn't have long to go until he wins the stage, takes the overall lead, and has one hand on the trophy in Paris already. I am afraid to say, I'm not afraid to say actually, I rather enjoyed this performance from Tadej Pogacar. But this might be an era of dominance that will properly begin from this point. He has been so elite across multiple seasons now and across many races, proved it in the classics, but the Tour de France is his playground, and he's made Jonas Vingegaard look like a child. And as we saw Pogacar go over the line, it flicked to Emmanuel Macron and we didn't see any of the celebration or whether he slowed up. Nice job from the stage directors there. But back it goes to Jonas Vingegaard. The timer starts, but I don't think we need a timer. I think you might as well hand the yellow jersey to Tadej Pogacar now, unless Visma Lease-A-Bike can pull something incredible off in the next couple of stages. But Jonas Vingegaard looks down and utterly out. It was a level playing field between them this year. Pogacar banged up after a crash yesterday. Doesn't matter. Left arm damage, left hip damage. But it clearly wasn't enough for Jonas Vingegaard to take advantage. He's still got 500 metres to go and is already a minute behind Tadej Pogacar. Pogacar finished more than a minute ago now. And Remco Evenepoel with Kevin Vauquelin on his wheel will be limiting his losses in the white jersey, as will Jonas Vingegaard. Pogacar now can smile that he's won the stage and is with a couple of UAE swan years. But Jonas Vingegaard, in the heat of Hautacam, has been cooked by Tadej Pogacar, who attacked from the foot and put him in a pressure cooker ever since, and Vingegaard just blew. Round the final corner for Jonas Vingegaard, and he's going to be incredibly downbeat after this stage. But I think he's had time to process this. Over 2 minutes now, approaching 2 minutes and 10 for Jonas Vingegaard. And this is Tadej Pogacar stamping his name on the race. 2 minutes and 12 to Jonas Vingegaard, who finishes second, but not even on the same mountain really as Tadej Pogacar. Florian Lipowitz gets within 12 seconds of Jonas Vingegaard on the stage, and it's a massive day for him. The new Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe leader, taking over from Primož Roglič, who just could not hold the wheels today. Jonas Vingegaard couldn't hold Pogacar's, but Roglič could not hold his own teammates. Oscar on lead, joined by Tobias Harlan Johannesson, is going to sprint for 4th place. Johannesson is going to get around on Lee and take 4th place. So Johannesson recovers to 4th, and Only finishes 5th on Hautacam. Johannesson then beats Only in the sprint as Remco Evenepoel and Kevin Vauquelin take it to the line. There will be a lot said about this stage for plenty of time to come. And I think I'm going to need a long time to prep things for tomorrow's stream to make sure that every angle is followed. Visma did a brief bit of talking before the stage began, but Pogacar has had the last laugh and will be giggling all the way to the bank if he wins the Tour de France this year, because he's put himself in the driver's seat to do that. And in pole position on the general classification. Let's get the results up then. Pogacar wins the stage. Cees Bol was the only withdrawal. He withdrew with illness. But Vauquelin outsprints Remco Evenepoel, actually takes 2 seconds on the Belgian on the road for P6. Felix Gall across the line, 4 minutes and 2 seconds behind Tadej Pogacar on the road, who was absolutely decimated with all of the competition on the Hautacam climb, and Primož Roglič blew up right at the end, was with Johannesson and Onley for the vast majority of Hautacam, but was caught and passed by Vauquelin, Evenepoel and Felix Gall, and will now be working in the services of Florian Lipowitz. Roglič finishes 9th, 4 minutes and 8 seconds behind Tadej Pogacar, his countryman on the stage. And that puts Pogacar in the lead of the general classification, 3 minutes and 31 seconds clear of Jonas Vingegaard. Remco Evenepoel in third on 4 minutes 45, and Florian Lipowitz jumps to 4th overall on 5 minutes and 34 seconds. Behind Tadej Pogacar, with Kevin Vauquelin, the only other rider within 6 minutes, keeping himself in the top 5, just ahead of Oscar Onley at 6 minutes 5. Roglič at 7:30 and Johannesson at 7 minutes 44 rounds off the top 8. But that is where I'll leave it, I think, for the stage. Tadej Pogacar, I think we have just seen the day that Pogacar took control properly of this Tour de France. And he did it in style. 12 kilometres solo. Very enjoyable watch for the stage. Admittedly, the stage was over pretty much a minute after he attacked off the pace of Jonathan Narvaez. But what a stage it was. And I'm going to go and figure out what the hell has just happened. And yeah, I will see you for the next stage. I'm now going to have to talk through this with my podcast co-host, who is a big Jonas Vingegaard fan. So I'm sure that's going to go down very well. Anyway, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy yourselves. And goodbye.